Hey, it's Lowery Smith of the Commander Smiths here with searching for the spotlight. We got Shiko and Narset unified. I have the deck list on Moxfield, and you can click on the link in the chat right there. I'll try and get it in the whatnot afterwards. But cool deal, Shiko, or I don't even know how to say it. Shit.
Can't
I
even
want to say
read.
Shiku. I'm going to say Shiku. So Shiku and Narset unified. That's a one in a blue and a red and a white for a 4/4 flying vigilance with human, spirit, dragon. And then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player. And you may choose new targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. So, real quick, Commander Smiths is a podcast that records every week. We've only missed a couple in 7 years. So you can check that out. Subscribe on the YouTube here. That makes it a ton easier. You can find us on any audio places and another app called TT or Insta or whatever. So you can kind of find us there. If you like this, write comments in the places that you can do comments. That's good stuff. We do short videos. We talk about magic cards, new sets. Right now we're doing a tournament for best TV music. We kind of got in trouble, a lot of copyright infringement, and that was our bad. We thought that it would just be demonetized, but they just banned it outright. They wouldn't even let us do it. So we still got the tournament going and whatnot, but we can't play any of the music, which is a lot lamer. We were cool just not making money off of it, obviously. But back to the deck. Okay, there's a couple of different ways that you could be making this. Clearly, you could just like cantrip into removal that targets. You can copy it. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. You got that going on. But this one, I decided to um, guarantee that I was going to be getting a second spell cast. I think that's perfectly fine. But basically, what I'm doing is like cascade, but cascading with your opponent's stuff as well. So like, and we'll just kind of get into it. That's what's going to happen. So I feel like half and half, or rarely I'm going to be able to copy something. It just might just be cantripping a lot more than I think, but that's okay. That's spinning the wheel essentially. And that's probably what I should call this. Shiku and Narset spinning the wheel. I'm gonna change the name. But you can always click that Mox field so you can see the cards all in all if you want to catch up and whatnot. But Shiku and Narset unified, pretty cool. And so we're gonna start off. This is kind of in sections, and we'll just talk about the sections, right? This first part is going to be mana and card selection. So, sorcerer's class, if you're ever doing spell slinging deck, this I highly suggest for you if you're in red and blue. So, red and blue enchantment comes into play, draw two, discard two, and then you can pay a red and a blue, and your creatures can tap for red and blue if you're casting an instant or sorcery with it. And the last part doesn't really matter. It might in this deck, but um, it's not planned. So, that's the deal. Lavinia, foil to conspiracy, 2/3 vigilance. Whenever you cast your second spell, investigate, and you can tap it for 2 colorless only during an opponent's turn. So it's a little bit of ramp, a little bit of draw. Frantic search, you are drawing 2, discarding 2, and untapping 3 lands. So basically, if you have something else to cast, you're able to do it. Card selection, untapping lands. It should do a lot of work for you. Shadow of the Second Sun, blue enchantment. You get a second upkeep. So you're untapping your lands, drawing a card, hitting any upkeep triggers. That part isn't important. It's the untapping your lands and drawing a card, being able to cast spells on opponents' turns with your instance. It's going to be pretty nice in that regard. And second handly, anything that's going to untap your lands in white, blue, red, I would say do it. There's not a lot. And so there's the Sphinx of the Second Sun. It might have been cut at this point, and then you also have Sword of Feast and Famine, which is a fantastic card. I play that way more than I should because it's a mean ass card, but it's fantastic. It's basically extra turns. Ashling Flame Dancer. This is one of those Magecraft things. So if you are copying, Magecraft is doing really, really well for you. The other thing that I should point out is I kind of messed up with Shiko and Narset when I first started building the deck. Because the spell has to target. And I was thinking, oh, I got creatures that can target. And I don't think that is how that works. I have not checked in with a judge on that, but the spell on a creature, if it's ET being, is targeting on the ETB, not when it's casting. Maybe some Eldrazi are doing that, but it has to be kind of on the casting part when it's on the stack and you can target stuff. If it's not happening, you're not copying. So there's that. So Ashling Flame Dancer, first one, you discard draw a card. Second one, 2 damage to each opponent and each player. Uh, each opponent and each creature they control. And then the third one is 4 red mana into your pool. Will I, basically guaranteeing that I'm going to get 1 or 2. Not sure about that third one, but still pretty dope. Archmage of Ruins, 5 mana, 3/6. Instants and sorceries cost 1 less. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. So basically, with the cascade aspect, um, you're going to be drawing 2 off of 1 spell. It's good stuff for you. Ragavan is getting you treasure and playing some of their spells. And like I said, I want to be casting their spells. So Ragavan actually fits perfectly in this deck. Smothering Tithe, just a lot of mana needed to consistently cast 2 spells. Game changer, baby. Stormkiln Artist, it also has that Magecraft, but creating treasures whenever you're casting an instant or sorcery is great, and also a little bit of bump for each artifact you control that is less relevant. I always forget about it. Pain Distributor. Whenever a player casts their second or first spell each turn, create a treasure token, and that's anybody, all of your opponents as well. And whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, this deals 1 damage to that player. So if you got somebody playing clues, food, treasures, they're going to be taking some damage. But really, the idea here is you cast a spell, and then you have some mana left over for the next spell. Now, like I said, I'm cascading, so I don't know how relevant that's going to be. And you know what? Right off the bat, I think because I'm trying to cascade, I'm not going to be needing that mana because I'm just already going to be doing it. So we're already there. Oh, thank you for hitting that thumbs up. If you're watching, please hit a thumbs up. That'd be great. And if you're not subscribed, try. Unstoppable Plan, 2 and a blue enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, untap all non-land permanents you control. Really, this is just to untap those artifact mana rocks, but it'll untap some of your creatures as well. Just having mana for the other turns to cast more spells. Dramatic Reversal, same thing, just an instant speed form. Do it kind of on an opponent's turn. And then also you're just able to cast another spell, that second spell off of this. So it's like a nice little ramp card in blue. Same thing with High Tide. It is a ritual, and then the next spell you're casting is just to get up there, that second spell. Then we have I'm fucking cutting these. No, I'm not. Just Pain Distributor so far. All right, High Tide. Already talked about that. Archaeomancer's Map. It allows you to go get some basic or some lands, and then you can potentially put them into play. You are not in green, so you likely will be behind on land. You are going to be cantripping, so you'll likely hit your land drops. But if you fall behind on anybody ramping, you'll be able to just start setting stuff up. Wayfarer's Bauble, getting a land into play. There you go. Grim Monolith and Mana Vault. I kind of put these in here thinking about rituals as well. They're both really good cards, but basically it's you play one of them and then you're casting a second spell that's a bit bigger. And so that's kind of the thought behind that. Generally, I try and not put them in there, but also I have those cards that are untapping them with Unstoppable Plan and Dramatic Reversal. So there's that. Arcane Signet for that mana rock, Mind Stone for a rock, Talisman and Talisman for ramp, Soul Ring for that ramp. If I have some of the artifacts on tapping, might as well have a bunch of artifacts. Mox Amber, Springleaf Drum, tapping a creature for mana. Mox Opal, Lotus Petal. We'll see what makes it through there. That is the ramp portion. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 26. So I'm going to have to cut roughly 6 to 10 of these. Let's see if I can cut anything off the bat. Um, let's say I don't like Lotus Petal in this regard. I think I would, but gotta cut something, right? Um, to we like Soul Ring. I always like the talismans in my 3-color decks. Mind Stone for a little bit of draw, Arcane Signet. Like, what am I not liking off the bat? Wayfarer's Bauble. Late game is not bad in this kind of deck because it's an easy spell to cast, even though it's not ramp. It's super cheap. I should maybe think about playing the Baubles, Urza's and Mishra's Bauble, just for cheap cantripping. Let's cut Bauble. Let's see here. Basic planes. Okay, so that has to be a basic planes. Um, let's see here. Oh, these are I counted those. 26. Give me a second. 19. Okay. These are the double ups, and sometimes they get cut, but right now that's like later in the game when I'm worried about it. All right. And I like probably these in regard as well. Hey, thanks everybody for joining me. Let's see here. So that's where we're kind of at. I do think I want to cut High Tide as well because I'm 3 colors. I don't know how many, you know, it's probably worth it, but let's cut it. If I was in 2 colors, I'd probably be happier with it off the bat. Um, I do have duels and shocks and whatnot. Oh, good for you. There we go.
Good for you.
But that does allow me to have more plain or basic lands, and really, I'm probably only running like 6 to 9. Nice. And that's it's iffy. It's iffy. So if I'm going more artifact heavy, I'm probably happier with dramatic reversal and unstoppable plan. And if I go more into map, I'm probably going to be leaning into the artifacts. I might even, it depends on how many ramp pieces I have, but getting a unwinding clock probably isn't a bad deal either if I'm thinking this route. And so if I am thinking that route, let's cut map right now as well. Just not worry about the lands and just be happy with how many artifacts that I'd be running. Let's probably be happy with that. Get rid of the rituals right there. 1, 2. And these are unreliable ramp, but I'd still consider that. So right there. All right, let's go with card advantage out of the deck. And this is kind of where you see the cascading part with this in another section. But Throws of Chaos, it's here just to cascade. And then you have Retrace. So discarding a land card allows you to cast this and cascade again. Thinking about this, I think there's another Retrace in here. Oh, no. Just one Retrace. Not a big deal. Crucible Worlds could be potentially something I'd like if I was discarding a lot of cards, but I don't think I will be. So, but cascading allows you, when you cast the spell, exile cards from the top of your deck until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled cards on the bottom. Random order. So basically, it's casting a spell to cascade and cast into another spell. That's kind of what the deal is. Now, this is for me. I think it's a great place to potentially put it, and I've thought about this card ever since it was printed a long time ago. When was it? 19, almost 5-6 years ago at this point. Crazy. And so I think it could be a fun deck for it here. Ardent Plea, cascading, it has exalted. So if you're attacking with something alone, which Shiko and Narset are more than able to do as a flying vigilance, it could be nice in that regard. Jin Gataxius, whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. And so, stuff like Throws of Chaos, Ardent Plea, this will cascade potentially into something that's 3 or greater, and this won't, but you're drawing a card, potentially drawing another card, drawing a card. There's a lot of that potential to go on, so I like it as a cantrip, and then you just have the backside that's always total bonus. So, as for Sentinel, for that easy draw, everybody knows that part. Whirlwind of Thought, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. So essentially, cast a card, likely cast another card or draw a card. Archmage's Emeritus, same deal. Casting instants or sorceries, draw a card. If you copy it, draw a card. Um, Crown, Violent Cacophony, 2/3 flyer. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, get a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. So just more draw, 4 mana. 4 mana is kind of like that high bar, and that's going to be rough. But also, if I have enough 2 mana rocks, I'll be hitting that on turn 3. So that's kind of the goal. Get some draw down, then drop Shiku and start cascading. Jorian, Diver. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card. It's very pretty, full art. I think they thought this was going to be a better card than it really is. But that happens sometimes. Malcolm the Eyes. 2/2 flying haste. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, investigate. Um, Investigating is pretty rough in this regard of what's happening. It does create an artifact, um, which might be a potential theme that's happening. So we'll keep it around, but I don't know. Skull Rack, if I'm cascading into my own stuff, then I could like to know what I'm cascading into. Sensei's Top can also set the top for that regard. Trumpeting Carnosaur, 7/6 trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield, discover 5, which is exile cards, cast something of 5 or less. Um, and then it also has that little discard removal. So that's kind of nice as well. But it's basically a cascade card. Faithless Looting, one of the best red draws cards, but draw 2, discard 2, flashback for 3. Thrill of Possibility as an additional cost. You're drawing 2 cards after discarding a card. Probably should get Demand Answers in here as well. I love both of those together. I don't care about the graveyard at this point, so I don't know how much I really want of that. It might just be a lot of blue cantrips in that regard. But Opt, Scry 1, draw a card. Brainstorm, draw, Jesus, this is one of the best cards in the game. Consider, Surveil, the top card, draw a card, and then into the Vortex, which is 5 mana, Cascade, and then Rebound. Rebound had less, yeah, lots of nice shinies, huh? Um, how's it going, Scott? And so into the Vortex, just cascading randomly, but you're going to get that second spell. If you're cascading your own stuff in this deck, what I'm doing is unlikely to be targeting at this point. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't done enough. 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let's 18. Let's cut Malcolm at this point. Like, I like it CMC at 2 versus everything that's just sitting at like 4, it feels like. But maybe I just should be happy with trying to get more cantrips in there at instant speed, because instant speed allows me to play off of potentially other people's stuff as well. And we'll see that in the future. So we're down 1. We're close-ish. We'll have to probably knock something off though. All right, into the removal. Not a huge package here. Sorry, guys. I'm not going to show my package either. But Hurl into History is a cool one. 5 mana counter spell. And then Discover X, where X is the spell's mana value. And just so that we get the actual reading of what Discover is, but exile cards from the top of your deck until you exile a non-land card with that mana value or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom. So it can go into your hand as well. And all that's pretty cool. So, but basically it's casting a spell to cast a spell. We have Path to Exile and Swords of Plowshare. That's just cheap ways. And then it does target so that you can potentially copy. Slick Sequences. It deals 2 damage to any target. If you've cast another spell this turn, draw a card. So it's kind of something like maybe you cantrip and then cast this to remove and draw another card and then maybe copy it. I don't know what you plan on doing with your life. Huge. Snap, targeting, bounce, untap 2 lands. Easier to cast something right after this to get your second spell. Prismari command, plenty of targeting in here to be able to copy, but also just something that's nice, cheap, a lot of power packed into one card if you can cast something before it, like flawless maneuver. Or I don't normally put all the free ones, but it is what it is. So free indestructible, free move a spell around, free counter spell. So these three are reactionary, and then I can do something like prismary command on somebody else's turn or the removal spells, and we are into protection. I only have, one, two, three, four, five, six pieces of removal. Let's not mess with that at this point. And then let's just talk about there's not a lot of protection in here either. So the free spells that are protecting, that's kind of what's going on there. Kind of wish that I don't think that deflection swat should be a game changer by any means, but we'll talk about that tomorrow night. Going raw. Jeez. Emerge unscathed. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and then rebound. So a free spell the next turn, and then it's just easier. Whatever your second spell is going to be is your choice. Ephemerate, same kind of rebound deal, but also as blinking a creature. Not a ton of blinking going on in here, but it's always nice to have some protection. And everybody has some ETB deals. Gold Forge Thopterix, flying lifelink 1/3. Each legendary permanent you control has ward 2. So at least Shiko and Narset and Gold Forged Thopterix have the protection. Then after that, it doesn't matter until we start looking at the actual deck. Swiftfoot Boots. I should probably get a Greaves in here as well, but Spellskite, cheap, easy, good blocker at the beginning. We also saw how many cards that we have at that 4 spot. For drawing cards, so that helps you get there. And also nice protection so nobody can target your shit. So that's where we're at. I'm liking that package as well. This could have been into the ramp package, but it's you don't want to overload on these things because decks have more than just instants and sorceries, but it is spell reduction costs. So Thunderclap Drake is reducing the instants and sorceries by 1, also has a copying feature on it, but it's here for the cost reduction. Same thing with Monk class, but that only works on the second spell per turn. It reduces by 1. There's a little bit of bounce or whatever. I don't really care about anything else unless I'm running out of stuff. Then you have Rawl Monsoon Mage, which reduces it. You can flip it over. You got to pay to reduce it. There's potential with a lot of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. And so you get a lot more um, loyalty on it. But honestly, like, I remember not being impressed with it. So I kind of wish I didn't buy it. Number one. Number two, I should probably just not play it. How about that? That's an easy one. Goblin Electromancer, reducing those instant and sorcery costs. Uh, Baral, Chief of Compliance, also reducing that instant and sorcery cost. We have Sunscape Familiar, which reduces blue spells in this deck by 1, which I like a lot more than instants and sorceries because there's probably just going to be more blue spells. It just hits more cards because, again, drop this on turn 2, turn 3. If you have the appropriate colors, Shiko and Narset's coming down. But to whereas if you drop a Brawl, you're still waiting on that. So Haughty Jin reduces those instants and sorceries by 1. Also gets a big power boost with stuff in your yard. Arcane Bombardment is something else. Let's talk about that. So let's go through these real quick. These cost reductions. And so this is always going to like the second one. I like them at 2. And Haughty Jin might just be he's like a nice beater, but it's also not what the deck is trying to do. The deck is just trying to steal your opponent's stuff and do some cool things. Um, I don't know how many things. So, like I said, I like the familiar. I think I want to keep the Drake in just because maybe a little bit better than Electromancer. And Baral has that just that little bit of niche. I think I have like 2 or 3 counter spells in here. I normally don't I've already Fierce Guardianship and then Hurl into History. So I at least have 2. And, nice little ass to block with. Um, I'm gonna cut Electromancer and Jin just because, I have that artifact theme that I wanna kinda go with too. I think that's more dependable than Instant and Sorcery Reduction, and we'll keep Monk class around right now just because it's, like, on theme of second spell being cast. So, we'll see what happens after this. Snoop's here. I've always been kinda tempted with a theft deck, and I hate when people grab my cards, so I wouldn't want to do it to 'em. Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, Snoop. I think the big thing that I'm hopefully doing here is that I'm not wasting they'll still be able to cast cards for the most part. I'm stealing from their deck, much like, Gonti, the new Gonti. So, like, it doesn't really affect their board presence. They're still going to be able to do what they want. I'm just playing with their cards more often. So it is a theft deck, but it isn't affecting their board necessarily, which is where theft decks can get really good, as in like whatever that Drake is from way back in the day. Like that's so good because 2 mana giving them a 3/3 flyer and you get to steal 6 mana investment. Like that's a huge swing. No matter what you're taking, they just essentially wasted a turn and you're leaving mana open. So it's not that kind of theft. So I don't feel as bad, but I know what you mean, Snoop. All right. Arcane Bombardment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your yard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of copies without paying their mana costs. So, this is probably a good time to talk about the difference between copying a spell and copying a spell that you can cast. So, something like Reverberate just comes down and it states copy target spell. And so you get a copy of it. That would not be considered casting when it comes to Shiko and Narset Unified because you're not casting that copy, but an Arcane Bombardment it specifically states you may cast any number of the copies. So you are casting those copies of the spell, thusly it counts. And so that's really important when it comes to Cascade or just stealing from the graveyard, if you know what I mean. So Bombardment works in this regard, and I'm thinking that it should do some really good stuff. And something like Surge to Victory, I'm gonna reread it, but 6 mana sorcery, exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control get +X/+O until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled cards. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So if you're casting this to exile something else, and then everything gets a boost, and whatever gets through, you're going to be able to copy all of them and cast them. And so hopefully you get a little bonus there, right? So that's kind of a cool part. And I've loved Surge to Victory for a long time. Again, I'm trying to use cards that I've wanted to play, and I think a lot of this is going to work really well together. So I think it'd be really fun to, um, copy a bunch of my stealing spells, and that can be a lot of fun. So Surge of Victory is pretty cool. Cast through time just gives my instants and sorcery spells rebound, and then at the beginning of my next turn, I'm going to be casting spells for free. I'm going to hit 1 or 2 for free and get something out of that. Vilmakis Lorehold, 5/5 flying vigilance haste for 7. Whenever it attacks, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value less than or equal to its power from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. And I like the card, and it's kind of like a weird cascade for me and it's casting stuff for free. The question ends up being, is 7 mana worth it? I'll probably have to look at my curve here next. But I think we'll run with it. So it's casting stuff for free if you're not seeing this section. So that's that. Narset and Leighton Master, similar effect, 6 mana, 3/2 for a strike hexproof. And when it attacks, exile the top 4 cards. And until end of turn, you may cast non-creature spells cards exiled with Narset this turn without paying their mana cost. So free spells, more often you're gonna hit more cards even though you're seeing less cards. It's a little bit cheaper. Um, so I casting from exile is a bit of a thing too. But Ogier, pack a pick,
Oh,
God damn it.
good for you.
I wish I read more, I guess. But basically giving my instants and sorceries rebound, free spells, essentially next turn. Narset and Leiden exile. Creatures you control have prowess. You're casting at least 2 spells per turn. In your turn. But whenever it attacks, exile target non-creature, non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, um, just playing from the graveyard, a little bit of prowess. Creatures you control have prowess. It's a nice little beat down there. All right, what do you? I don't think any level of reading ability can save someone from that card name. That's true. It ain't even a name at this point. It's a whole verse. Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. It's just damn hard. All right. Mizzix's Mastery, just casting spells from your graveyard. For that overload cost, we have so it's just you're going to be casting the first spell and then you can choose whatever's in your graveyard. Hopefully it targets, hopefully you can copy it. You should be able to do some work there. River Song's Diary, 3 mana artifact. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell from their hand, exile it instead of putting it into a graveyard as it resolves. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled with River Song's Diary, choose one of them at random. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. So it's exiled. You're casting it for free at your upkeep. More than likely, this is just looking for 3, and off of 1 of your casting, you'll probably get at least 2. Um, so I think that kind of works. Gale Watership or Water Deep Prodigy. I've liked this one, but I don't think it's going to work in this deck necessarily. I think I'm just happier with some of the other cards. But whenever you cast an instant, you can cast a sorcery from your graveyard. It gains flashback. Whenever you cast a sorcery from a hand, an instant gains flashback. And so I'm going to cut this one. I don't need too much play from the graveyard. Power Balance is a pretty cool card. If I'm manipulating top a little bit with Brainstorm or top or Scroll Rack, Power Balance can be a big bonus for me. But whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If you do, you may cast the card without paying its mana cost of the 2 spells, if the 2 spells have the same mana value. So casting free spells off the top, I have no complaint with that. Free spells are going to be really nice with Shiko and Narset. All right. So that's basically the free spell package. Um, and I don't hate anything at this point. I'm gonna have to look at the curve because these 2 get pretty high up there. Um, Lore Hold and Cast Through Time. And everything else I'm okay with. Like, this is up there. This is an 8er, but this is gonna cast a lot of spells. To whereas, like, when I'm looking, at least I'll be able to cast a spell off of this, but something like Cast Through Time is gonna be a turn off. Like, unless like, I'm not gonna feel sexy at all for a turn. Like, it's just drop it and then hope that you have some free spells to protect or something. Alright, I'm talking myself out of this one at least. Cast Through Time is gone. Um, it's a 7 mana setup card, and that's gonna be brutal. Whereas Narset is the same thing, but you're gonna get a huge bonus. Okay, we're good there. All right. Let's go with there's a little, there's a bunch of cards that are being cast from exile, Rebound is going to be from exile. Your cascade is going to be from exile. From the graveyard, sometimes it's going to be great from exile. So I think there's going to be a lot of bonuses with that. But Keeper of Secrets, 6/4 demon, first strike haste. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to the spell's mana value to target opponent. So I think you're going to get a lot of damage shots in. Wild Magic Sorcerer, 4 mana, 4/3. The first spell you cast with from exile each turn has Cascade. So you're casting from exile, and it might just kind of give you more Cascade triggers, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Storm of Sauron. It's a 6-mana enchantment with Ward 3. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it, except the copy isn't legendary. You may choose new targets for the copy. So it's just almost like a second Shiko and Narset, but it's going to copy every second spell, not just whatever targets. All right. Viren, Voice of Duality. It's there basically if an instant or sorcery is triggering something, it's going to trigger second time. So if you're drawing a card, you'll draw a second one. If you're copying it, you're going to copy it again. So it's just like as long as Shiko and Narset's in play, it's a second version of them. You could probably go with clones like Sakashima and stuff like that in here as well in that regard. But I think I'm going to be pretty fat at that 4 spot. I think I'd just rather have it at the 3. And there's going to be plenty of Magecraft going on too. So it'll be beneficial in other places as well. Passionate Archaeologist. Commander creatures you have, whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So a lot of exile, like I was saying. And if I'm cutting a lot of stuff from exile, then you can start cutting this as well. Now Fashni, God damn it.
She can't even
Get a drink of water. All right, 6 mana, 4/6 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, copy has second end of turn. So again, another kind of copying effect from exile. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy gains haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifices permanent. I don't love it, but it's pretty good from exile. I mean, that might be a lot of spells. I'll have to think about it a little bit. Direfleet Daredevil. Whenever ETBs exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard, you may cast that card this turn. You may spend mana of any type. And then, so you're casting it. It's from exile, and it's basically perfect in this deck. You know what I mean? Chaos Wand. 3 to come down, 4 to activate and tap. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of their deck until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Everything else doesn't matter. But basically, my problem with this is that it's not casting a spell to cast a spell, and so it's going to be slower. I do have Wand of Wonder on the way, which is red and does this, but it does 2 spells, which I like a lot more. It'll at least cast 2 spells, you know what I mean? So I think I'm cutting Chaos Wand, and I'll be happy with Wand of Wonder. But that's how the cookie crumbles. And both of those are in my Zerta deck. So, and that's fantastic there. All right, Synthesis Pod. This is a weird one. It's like Birthing Pod, but 4 spells, but 3 and a Phyrexian blue, and then 1 and a Phyrexian blue. Tap, exile a spell you control. Target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a card with mana value equal to 1 plus the exiled spell's mana value. Exile that card, then that player shuffles. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So if you don't like what you cascaded into, or whatever you're taking from them, you just you know
get rid of it and try and get something else. So it just seems kind of interesting and exactly what the deck is doing. So I dig this one in there. Okay, so we're stealing cards now, by the way. I knew that. All right. Just these doubling effects, and that's cool. That's cool. Not worried about it. Uh, all right, synthesis pod. We got that. All right, next one. Wildfire. Is this just going to be a big fat amount of it? Yeah. Okay. Let's we'll get rid of this little batch at the end there. But Eris, Roar of the Storm. This spell costs 2 less for each different mana value among instants and sorceries in your graveyard. So it's 10 to come out, but if you have 4 different CMCs of instants and sorceries, it's a red and a blue for 4/4 flying prowess. And then whenever you cast your second spell, you create a 4/4 dragon. So putting a little bit of heat on the board. Second spell is doing what the deck is doing. Geralf the Fleshright, dangerous name. It's very close to Fleshlight, but whatever. Whenever you cast your second spell or a spell beyond your first, create a 2/2, and then zombies get 1/1 counters on them as the turn goes. Uh, Heartborn Battler. Whenever you play a or player cat, whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Heartborn Battler, God, deals 2 damage to target opponent. You know what? I did not realize that it's whenever a player. I thought it was whenever you. Um, so this is much better. I was just about to cut it, and then whenever it's a player, I know Adam's going to be casting 2 spells per turn. Not everybody else is guaranteed in that regard, but I think that can do some work. And then Caldera Pyremaw, 5 mana, 3/3 flying. This has made it into this might be my third deck for this one. But whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then this creature deals damage equal to its power to target opponent. So 5 mana, flying 3/3. It's not casting stuff to cast something, but the next turn you cast an instant or sorcery, one a counter, 4 damage to somebody to the face, and then you cascade into something and probably put another counter on it, and then 5 damage to his face, and then you're attacking for 5 damage towards somebody. That's doing some work right there in my mind. So I'm pretty happy with that, I think. All right, back to stealing your opponent's stuff. Synthesis Pod, Dire Fleet Daredevil. All right, Wildfire Devils, 4 mana, 4/2 Devil. Whenever it ETBs and at the beginning of your upkeep, choose a player at random. That player exiles an instant or sorcery card from their yard. Copy that card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, stealing from your opponent's yards. Arcane Heist, 4 mana. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put in the graveyard, exile instead. It also has ciphers, so basically attach it to one of your creatures. If they can get through, it casts again. Um, so that feels like a kind of a cool card, repeatable. I'd have to reread Cipher without the rules text there. I am fairly certain it says cast on it. Um, so we'll go with that. Talents of the Telepath, 4 mana sorcery. Target opponent reveals the top 7 cards of their deck. You may cast an instant or sorcery from among them without paying its mana cost, which allows you to do your second spell pretty easy. Then that player puts the rest into the yard. Spell mastery: if you have 2 or more instants in or sorceries in your own graveyard, you get to choose 2 of those instants or sorceries that are revealed. So cool little deal there. Stolen Goods, 4 mana sorcery. Target opponent exiles cards, and then you get to cast it. Exile an online card. You get to cast that card. Casting a card to cast a card. Flawless Forgery, casualty 3. So sack a creature with power 3 or greater to copy this spell, but 5 mana sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery from an opponent's graveyard. Copy it. And if you cast a copy without paying its mana cost. So another one just stealing from the yard. We'll have to see how many graveyards that I'm trying to steal from, but Ensnared by the Mara. This card's crazy cool. It's a lot of fun. So 4 mana sorcery. Each opponent faces a villainous choice. The Sorry. They exile cards from the top of their deck until they exile a non-land card. Then you may cast that card without paying its mana cost, or that player exiles its top 4 cards of their library and ensnared by the Mara deals damage equal to the total mana value of those exiled cards to that player. So it's either some damage or me getting a card. So I think it's perfect. It's been a lot of fun. And so this one's definitely in the deck. Dazzling Sphinx, 5 mana, 4/5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles cards from the top of their deck until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. And when that player puts the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom, random. So again, this feels kind of like Narset and that dragon, but only I'm going off of their stuff. So I think I'm happier with this than the other two because I'm stealing. And so I think that I think I'm at least getting rid of the dragon at the very least. Mindclaw Shaman, 5 mana 2/2 via Shino Shaman. This always looks like a minotaur to me, but whenever ETBs target opponent reveals his or her hand, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from that player's hand without paying its mana cost. So a little, a target for that ephemerate that I was talking about earlier, but also just a fun way to steal out of the hand, which is probably going to piss some people off. How about that? Psionic Ritual at 6 mana. It has replicate, so tap an untapped horror you control, which I will have none. Exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile it. Seeing that we have, let's see here, Arcane Heist at 4. Let's see, where's the other one? Flawless Forgery at 5. I don't think we need a 6 mana version of this that we can't copy at least. Let's get rid of that. Spell Twine, which is always a fun one, but 6 mana sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy those cards, cast the copies if able without paying their mana costs. Exile Spell Twine. So no matter what, you're getting 3 spells out of this one. Not a bad deal. Spelljack, 6 mana, counter spell, target spell. If it's countered this way, remove it from the game instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. As long as it remains removed from the game, you may play it as though it were in your hand without paying its mana cost if it X is 0. So it's a way to steal somebody's thing that you're trying to counterspell. If it's an instant, casting a spell to cast their spell. If it's not, you get a free spell probably on your turn, and then you're just able to cast something else a lot easier. So for that second spell, but I think that's probably going to make it as well because I'm a jerk. How about that? Hey, again, thanks everybody for joining. Please remember to hit that thumbs up. I would appreciate that. Atali, Primal Storm. If you're going to cast other people's stuff, this is one of those cards that you're definitely going to do it with. Easy free casting. Reversal of Fortune. This is one that I don't see a lot, but 6 mana sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You may copy an instant or sorcery card in it and play the copy without paying its mana cost. So I mean, if I'm comparing these two, I like Psionic Ritual because I can at least see if they might not even have anything in this one. And let's see here. Mindclaw Shaman kind of is in that regard as well, but it's cheaper and it's at least a chump block that I can potentially blink. This is just 6 mana swinging. You might get fucking nothing. So that not a good card, but I'm showing it off. It's pretty cool in that regard. How high is the curve in that deck? That's a lot. Yeah, yep. This isn't the deck. This is the building right now. So we're gonna have to almost done looking at the deck, and then I'll go through and start cutting stuff even more. But we've already made 15 cuts at this point. So Jace's Mind Seeker, 6 mana, creature coming into play, and you get to cast an instant or sorcery from the yard without paying its mana cost. So casting a card to cast a card. Mind's Dilation, 7 mana. This is one of those that, like, you're casting their stuff for free whenever they're casting their first spell, and then you can potentially sneak something in there. So I think this easy add in. Sorceress Squall, 9 mana sorcery, has Delve, and then target opponent mills 9 cards. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell from that player's yard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put in the graveyard, exile it instead. Um, so again, we'll have to look at this, but milling 9 cards at least adds a lot of stuff. Later game, this is easy to cast, but casting stuff to cast stuff. That's what I'm trying to do. Diluvian Primordial. When it ETBs, you're exiling yards or graveyard cards from your opponents and casting stuff for free. Um, so that's an easy gonna cast a bunch of instants and sorceries. Chancellor of the Spires, 5/7 when it ETBs, exile an instant or sorcery, and then cast it for free. And then you have Plargan Nasiri. 5/4 at the beginning of your upkeep. Each player exiles cards from the top until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So free spells from your opponents. Um, so we'll have to figure out. Let's actually do this right now. Um, Anything that like kind of cascades down and free spells, I'm gonna be pretty happy with it. Anything that's pulling from the graveyard, I think we're going to um, just take a real quick look at that and see what's going on. We got that. So out of cards that kind of are going to be self-reliant, that's in the yard as well. Off the top, off the top, off the top, in the hand, on the stack, top. So these cards I think are just going to be in. They seem like they're just going to be great. Mindclaw Shaman's probably the only questionable thing, but these ones, they're in. Here, we'll cut that. It's just too blind to know what's going on. There's at least some self-mill there with Jace's Mindseeker, Telepath, and Squall. You may cast up to 1 target instant or sorcery. So that's kind of there. And there's that. All right. Graveyard, graveyard, graveyard. And that has to be mine as well. These are all graveyard cards. So the question ends up being like, I like Divu. This is just so many options. I feel good. I like these. Something that's going to mill and give me some options if they're not casting any instants or sorceries. um, I think Chancellor of the Spires, even though it's going to cast me something for free, I have a feeling it's not going to be as good. Like it's just really fat. There's just so much at the top that I'm worried about. Okay, so what I'm thinking here too is that it's just 7's a lot probably in this deck, but it is casting something for free. It can be a little bit of a win con. I don't know. So I like the repeatableness of Wildfire Devils and Arcane Heist. I think Spelltwine ends up getting cut here, unfortunately. Not being a creature, because I don't have a lot of creatures already. Direfleet Daredevil, that's just super cheap. I feel like I can get like a ramp card or a cantrip pretty easy early game if I'm floundering. And Flawless Forgery, like that. I like talent of the telepath probably better. Feels more like a roulette off the top. I like that part for these two especially, and that one. Um, so I'm going to cut these two just to reduce the amount of dependency on somebody's graveyard. That's kind of where we're at. So I think we're happy there. All right. We start off with like 111 at the start of this. $18 cuts. So we're down to like 93 cards. And thusly, we got like 25 more cuts before I'm done. Got an hour. Got about a half hour left before I'm calling it a night. Let's go CMC round. Where are we at with everything? Let's see here. That's there. And then we'll just see what's going on and see where the curve is. Because I mean, if we're just fat up here, we're gonna just that's the easy spot. That's where you make a ton of cuts from, because you can't do that. Just have all that stuff stuck in your hand. Otherwise, you're not gonna do anything. 3, 6. That's honestly like a higher one. We're cutting that. We already thought that. 2s. Freeze. Freeze and 3s. All right. Let's cut Thrill to Possibility. Just be happy with the cantrips we have, and if we're lacking them, we'll add them later. Not going to be terribly worried about it. 3, 4, 4, 4. Yeah, we just... There's a lot there. 2 and 1. I mean, we do have a lot of good ramp in here that can just get us to where we're going pretty quick. That is a benefit of what we're doing, but we definitely have... We're pretty thick in that area. 3, 3, 2. All right. 5. I'm probably gonna want to cut one of these, but this is a reduced one. I'm not casting many cards from my own graveyard, although it does matter for this. So like these cards kind of work against each other. This is eating the graveyard. This is needing something in there. So there's that. And a little bit like Mrs. Mastery as well. This eats the graveyard and wants a bunch of stuff in there, to whereas, I should probably be close to winning the game if I do this. This is probably a slower grind. You know what? I think Eris can probably go. Unfortunately, that was a fun get, but I think you don't want too many things. Like if you cast a Mastery and then Eris is on board, or you can't really cast it after that. It becomes a dead card in hand. So 4, I'm not displeased with that, especially if we're like these two. But it's 6 spot feels a little thick too. Shadow of the Second Sun, Trumpeting Carnosaur. Don't have a lot of Discover going on, but some. Let's see here. I like Mindseeker, Spelljack, Itali. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, you may choose. So all that stuff that I'm cascading off of, that can be a copy if it's a perma spell. So like that's a little bit of a bummer if you're like copying an artifact. Like you can understand a creature, but let's cut that one, I guess. Yeah. Let's be okay with that. This is gonna cast a bunch of spells. That's maybe a little bit of a win con. Narset's pretty dope. I'm gonna be able to cast some spells off of that. That'll probably do plenty of damage. Storm. Yep. I'm kind of okay with a lot of this. Maybe my biggest 6 mana, shadow. All right. Here's one of the thoughts that I have on Arcane Bombardment. The stuff that I've felt like that it has happened is 6 mana comes down and then I just don't have a lot going on. Like I might get 1 or 2 off of it and then it's kind of near the game. So it's a bit slow for my games. Secondarily, I don't think this eats up whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn. Okay, so that part doesn't really work with the second spell being cast. Although it can create the second spell that's being cast. It does eat up. I already got rid of Eris, but it also kind of doesn't work with Mrs.'s Mastery or Sorcerer's Squall. Um, hmm. Let's cut Mastery. I do really like Mastery a lot. Um, but I do play it, and I don't play Bombardment. So let's switch it up a little bit. Let's get rid of that. I do think this one's slower, but that's okay sometimes. Um, Surge to Victory with a Sorcerer's Squall. That seems pretty cool. Everything gets +9/+0. Well, you'll get something through. Anything else that I just hate in that 6 spot? Not really. All right, 5s feels okay. That feels okay. Not a lot of thickness there. Caldera Pyramaw, like the question ends up being is like, I think it can be really good, but I also don't think it's dealing the damage, but it's not stealing. Um, Off the top, it's not casting spells. I mean, it's a way for the game to end. Sheesh. Let's see here. Um, I don't hate what's going on. Dazzling Sphinx, Plarg, casting off the top, casting off the top, casting off my top. Same thing there. Jingataxius, like the ugh. All right. Ruins, Pyramaw feels pretty good. All right. What am I doing here though? This again, it's too late in the game to be drawing too many, but the cascade option feels like I'm going to be able to draw some cards off of it because every time I cast one spell, it's going to likely get a second one. And so there's that. Funny thing is like I feel like this is too high to come out, but then Adam casts it and it draws him fucking 17 cards in a game. And that just always frustrates me when it doesn't work for me, but it works for him. Let's just be happy. Let's just be happy with it. Spell. Let's just try it for now. Huh? All right. 4 spot. 4 and 2 spot are pretty thick. 3 is down there. Okay. That doesn't matter. Let's look at the 4s. Ashling. I don't hate it. It's going to put a bunch of cards in my yard, though. Like Smothering Tithe, Stormkiln Artist, Throws a Carol or Chaos, Crown, Emeritus, Wind of Thought, Ogier, Narset, Wild Magic Sorcerer, first spell you cast from exile. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Let's be honest. Because every spell you cast from Cascade would, or exile would go bonkers with itself. All right. Synthesis Pod feels really good here. Bop, bop. These 2 cards are absolutely in. Snared by the Mara, Stolen Goods. Absolutely in. I love Talent of the Telepath. Just gonna feed into itself. We're gonna need pop, pop, pop. No share. Yep, yep. All right. So I'm at a place where like I like that is just random. All right, let's choose a player at random. That player exiles an instant of sorcery card. Man, that's too much out of your control, right? I'd be okay with a random player, but then they get to choose what you would want to cast. All right. Wildfire Devils just has to go just a little too chaotic for what I got going on. Even though I'm talking about like cascading into nothing. Casting cascade cards into nothing. That's what I'm doing in this deck. Um, let's see here. Narset. I do like it. If I was like sacrificing more artifacts, I'd probably be happier because it is just a non-land card, non-creature, non-land. Um, it is casting a spell for free though. At least Ashling. Ashling's not really doing that. Some nice removal though. Arcane Heist. I think I can probably cut Arcane Heist at this point too. Yeah, probably okay. Narset can bring stuff back that's being removed. 3 drops. Kind of liking everything at this point. River Song's Diary is gonna do some stuff. Geralf, Hardborn Battler. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Don't hate much of that. See there. All right, 2 spot. This is pretty thick, but we know that there's a lot of ramp in this spot, and I am okay with that. Snap, Brawl, Thunderclap, Familiar. Spellskite might just be put in for Greaves. Greaves needs to make it in here probably. Not a lot of legendary things going on. And that's not a huge problem. Second spell. You know what? I think I'm casting a bunch of stuff for free. So I'm not going to worry about this one. Monk class can get out of here, even though it'd be perfect in almost any other Shiko and Narset unified deck. It's not going to work here. Power balance is probably a big stretch, but we'll work with that. All right, we got one cut there. If I'm going to cut something else, it might be Mind Stone because I'm going to keep Grim Monolith. This is going to be stupid. So likely this deck's going to be in like tier 4 and I'm just doing some random ass shit. Whatever. All right, Mind Stone goes away too. 1 drops, Soul Ring, Springleaf Drum, cool, Mox Opal. Ragavan. Kind of like what's going on here. Plenty of instants. Real cheap. Yeah. I'm all right with that. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 90. All right. We're at 84. Really, we only have like normally stop at about 10 more cuts. So let's get there, eh? Break this up into types. Let's see where we're at. How many what's-its we have going on. I'm normally a lot more heavy in the creature aspect. I don't do a lot of spell slinging. So that's okay. Either way. I just feel like permanents do more of like an engine thing, but it can be once it's disrupted, you're in a lot of trouble. So that's why protection is important. Enough card draw. Let's see here. And so we will. Oh, there we go. That's a nice little package there. Nothing crazy. 2, 3. Dot, dot, dot. Plenty of artifacts that are going to be in there too. Whoop. Whoop, 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 whoop. Then we have. I mean, we do want to have more instants and sorceries in this regard. I just have a lot more cards that interact with it right now. Sorcery. So we do want to be more instant and sorcery bit because we have the cards that work with it, but we need to also make sure that we're not too heavy any which way. So right now, I would definitely say we have enough instants and sorceries for those cost reducers, but we don't have a ton of them. So sorceries. I mean, the question is do I keep these like bad cascade cards? Is that a cut that we can do? Yeah, probably. Probably. I'd love to have them in the deck, and they might still go in. Like stolen goods just feels like throws of chaos. Like I'm doing it to them versus doing it to me. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm cool with that. Back in, buddies. I like that. All right. Instant wise, plenty there. Spelljack, hurl into history. I just dig those two quite a bit. Casting spells to cast spells. Prismari command. That just feels like a coverall. I don't treasure, draw 2, discard 2, 2 damage to any target, destroy an artifact. Um, yeah, it's a nice coverall. I'm happy with that. So consider, opt. Those are both cool. Bop, bop, bop. Ephemerate, emerge unscathed. This is a nice little protection bit. Yeah. Yeah. I don't dislike any of this stuff. The only worry I have would be something like yeah, dramatic reversal is gonna do pretty well for me. I'll make sure not to put in I was thinking about adding in Isochron Scepter, but I don't want infinite mana. Essentially, that's what that can do with dramatic reversal and any number of artifact rocks. So let's avoid Isochron Scepter or dramatic reversal. Um and that might just and Isochron Scepter works with this deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 choices. Like the big thing is like I just don't want to go infinite, but I can imprint a bunch of this stuff. Mm, mm, mm. You know what? Isochron Scepter feels like it's just a consistent cast. So, I mean, we'll get rid of dramatic reversal at this point, but it's just a replacement card. So maybe we just leave it in so that we can remember this or Isochron Scepter. Right now, I'm probably happy with all those instants as instants. Any cost reducer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. Some of the enchantments here 7, 6, 6, 6, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. So that's random for me. Power balance, sorcerer's class. Counterbalance is probably pretty brutal in that regard too. This feels like too much. Like 6, 6, 6, 7. Mind's dilation feels like it's perfect in the deck. So I do want that. I like the second storm. I think Arcane Bombardment gets the cut. Whirlwind of Thought is going to draw me cards. How much? Okay, so here's that next question. Shiko and Narset is likely going to be my cantrip. Like the targeting part is I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's the random part about it. Um Auras, I said instants and sorceries target. Auras would also target when you're casting them. So there's that as well. Um okay, probably fine on that. Artifacts. Synthesis Pod, River Song Diary. This is just random. It's kind of cool. That has a shot to go away, though. I think Synthesis Pod is going to do more work, which is weird to say. Let's reread this one bit. All right. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell with their hand, exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard as it resolves. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled with River Song's Diary. Okay, so here's a little bit of the problem is this shuts off everything that I want to play from the graveyard. Shit. But then those are just dead cards and then you discard them, right? Is that the idea and you just let this do its thing? The beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled with it, choose one of them at random. You may cast it without paying. Yeah, the random part probably kills River Song's Diary, unfortunately, along with kind of gutting cards like the instants and sorceries from the primordial and other cards like it. So yeah, that's probably done. Pod, boots, scroll rack, talisman, signet, monolith, bop, bop, bop. I guess the other question is how many rocks do we have in here? Um 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna say that I like these. I don't have a lot of cascading into my own stuff though, do I? I mean, I feel like we might be like half and half. Yeah. Let's 1, 2, where I like care about playing off the top. 3, 4, 5. I don't know how much 5, nothing there. 6, no. 7. Hmm. Is that it? Yeah, that's it off the top. So 7 cards. Skull Rack probably still is pretty good here. That's enough there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think maybe we get rid of those 2. Keep those 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. We'll just be happy with that, I think. Made some cuts. 4. All right. Let's see here. And then creatures, anything that's going to stand out. Maybe we don't like it. Yeah, I mean, whenever you cast a non-creature spell of 3 or greater, let's set that off to the side. That might be too much work. Crown. Yeah. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn, other than your first spell this turn, create a 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token. Whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So essentially, I'm casting a spell, 2/2, cascade into something else, cast that spell, make it 2/2, put a 1/1 counter on it, and any other. Oh no, the first one does not create a 2/2 though. So how many spells do I need to be casting to get a bunch of stuff out of this? Probably more than I want to be doing. I'd have to cast 3 to get a 2/2 and a 3/3. That's just not going to happen a whole ton. Okay. Drolf goes. And then I guess the next thing is how realistic is to get that dragon. I'm doing 2 spells, a lot of fat, like 4 mana things. I am okay with the idea of thinking this isn't going to work either. Okay with that idea. I am going to get 2 spells, and so that's 2 damage on stuff. That's dope. That's okay. Narset. Jorian, I think that's perfect in the deck. Lavinia. I got rid of Malcolm for the same reason. Like, that was cast a second spell, get a clue token. This does add mana for me. Has vigilance. It's kinda they're both kind of good in this deck, but then also, again, kinda not. Because investigating is kind of bad. All right, in this kind of deck, I don't need artifacts hanging around for no reason. Dire Fleet makes sense. Still leave that around. Baral 1, 2, and a third, which is cool. I'm down with that. Mana value not paid, which is good. Spell Sky, da 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 da. All right. Let's see how many things that will trigger with Jenga Taxis. Probably plenty at this point. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, this should trigger plenty. All right, we have cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 more cuts left, and then I'm acceptable that I can take off. Let's go through what they're going to do one more time, and then we'll probably just call it a night. So drawing. That's an everything. Protection. We got that at that mana spot now. And technically, all that stuff that I'm stealing from the graveyard is card advantage to a degree. But we'll just have graveyard probably top a deck, and then a literal draw over here, just so we have something. It's going to be damage, and then we're starting to get off already. Got so many options, I guess. Huh. Let's put that at the bottom. I don't know what the fuck that's going to be. Drawing, cascading, card advantage, casting more spells. That's going to be a damage. I guess cascading, card advantage. We'll call that from the graveyard. Manas. Card selection, protection. God damn it. That's some bullshit. I don't know what that is. Draw, ramp. So that's cast a spell to cast a spell. That is for the ramp. I don't know how to do power balance in the just random ass copying spells. That's probably random ass. Off the top, that is card advantage. Removal. I'm going to be a dickhead. Just kind of, I generally use that as removal, but it's nice in a pinch. Ramp, removal, draw, protection, 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 protection. That's casting from the graveyard, graveyard. Likely, well, let's put that in damage. Off the top, graveyard, and bullshit. All right. Let's get our counts in, see how things are going to go. Oh, this is very fat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 24. All right. Is what it is. Well, we're going to want that shorter, but let's just count everything else out. 15. So we're keeping this for sure. Don't need to cut anything. No notes. And then we're essentially looking at this and just kind of going, yeah, I'm kind of okay with a bunch of this. We're gonna need to cut down on the card advantage part, and so we'll make decisions there. Frantic search. We have a lot of stuff that's going into the graveyard, so that should be okay. Shadow of the Second Sun, Sorcerer class. I like probably a lot of these. We're down with that. We'll deal with that later. Protection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably a little high. These are cheap and free spells. And these two are kind of serving the same purpose. I like the free spells though. I want those in just because it's easier to cantrip off or just free spell into an instant that I can copy, and I'll be a lot happier. I like the rebound aspect, so I'm down with that. Boots is for sure in. I don't have any real reason to keep or cut either of these other than its protection. They can block. Let's keep them for now. I'd have to relook at the curve, but we'll see about that. All right, removal part, like I was saying, I like both of these. Generically, these are pretty good. Obviously, swords and path. I think that's a good card in the pinch. What's Snap going to do? Target creature, untap 2 lands. I have Frantic Search that's kind of doing that. They do both. Well, this one targets, so if it's my second spell, untapping 4. Don't hate any of it. All right. Damage 1, 2, 3, 4. I have no problem with any of that. Copies or whatever. I guess this is free off the top, card advantage type stuff, but let's put that in card advantage, even though it's not really. Doubling up, kind of another steal, and then a secondary copy of that makes a ton of sense. Talents of the Telepath. This is all graveyard stuff, so that's mine, that's theirs. Mine, theirs. Mills doesn't. Cheap, multiple. And both of those are pretty nice. Don't hate any of that. Narset and Surge of Victory. Surge of Victory seems cool. It seems cute. I just don't. How many creatures am I going to really have that are going to do much about it? Okay, for now. All right, let's take a look at this card advantage one. We'll just break this down, and it's probably too much, and this is probably the easiest spot to cut from. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. 1, 6. 1 and 5. All right. I like mine's dilation. That'll put in some work if we get there. Itali feels like a different version of Narset. I'm not stealing, but I'm still casting from exile. Still pretty cool. Whereas like trumpeting Carnosaur just feels like it'll happen right away, which is kind of nice. I don't need that attack trigger, but I do need a lightning greaves in here as well. I think we can cut trumpeting Carnosaur. We'll keep these just for the multipleness of them. The more expensive they are, the nicer it is to get cards out of it. All right. Just kind of drawing cards, free cards off the top. Got to deal damage for this to happen. And cascading into your own stuff is, I mean, there are definitely some cards that I'm cool with doing that. All right. Archmage, Chrome. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a 1/1. This is more cascading, which is kind of that's cool. I'm down with it. Ogier is that rebound, whirlwind of thought. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. Plenty of artifacts to be able to do stuff with that. So Rutro. Arden Plea and Jorian are both dope in that regard. Power Balance and Scroll Rack. So far, we've only made one cut, unfortunately. And then we have some incidents. We can cut Faithless Looting, probably. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus probably some Surveil lands. So the first turn is decently set in that regard. So we made 2 cuts. I'm not going to be totally upset about what's going on. Let's do a final count, and then I'll make my own cuts. And we have a Discord if you want to check it out. It's only $1. We give out proxies, as you saw. Some of these proxies we do give out. They almost always available to everybody. Thanks everybody for coming out. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know which way you're going with your Shiko and Narset unified deck. And it's a lot of fun. All right. Have a good night. Bye.